Welcome back to MathSpark. In today's video, we're going to talk about tips for time management over the course of your semester. Time management is how you should budget your time so that you can maximize your chances of success in the class by minimizing your time crunches. And by a time crunch, I mean those weeks when everything seems to be due at the same time, and it's amazing how often that seems to happen in college. So what should we do? Well, maybe we could take a look at time management the same way we take a look at homework problems and analyze it through the filter of Poya's four-step process. Understanding a problem, devising a plan, carrying out that plan, and then looking back at what we've done. So the first step in understanding the time management problem is to understand the unit of time that matters here in college, the credit hour. So to learn about what a credit hour is, I'm going to go and pop onto the internet really quickly to ecatalog.sdsmt.edu, the school's online electronic version of the catalog. On the eCatalog page, I'm going to go and select Policies and Definitions, which will give you a list of all of the policies that you need to know as a student here at the School of Mines. But the one I want to focus on is the credit hours definition. And so if I select the credit hours definition, here it is right here. And this you want to know well. What does it say? It says this: the amount of academic work scheduled or carried by a student is measured in terms of credit hours. A credit hour is 3 hours of in-class time and preparation combined per week for one semester. So the short version is this: 1 credit hour is 3 hours of student work per week. However, that gets divvied up. 1 hour of lecture, 2 hours of student preparation, homework, review, reading. That means that for your standard 4-credit class, the expectation is that you will be doing 12 hours of work for that class per week. Extrapolate this out to a full-time student, which is between 12 and 18 credit hours. That means you are expected to dedicate between 36 and 42 hours of work per week for your classes. And look at that number. 40 hours a week is a full-time job. That's the expectation of your courses. That's how it will suddenly seem as though your classes have piled up on you, or suddenly everything seems to be due at the same time. If you don't budget your time on a job, you're going to get behind. And that's what happens for students in that 5th week time crunch. So your goal for each semester is to set aside enough time to put in the work needed to meet the credit hour expectation of the load you're carrying. So we understand the problem. It's all about credit hours. When you take a 3-credit course, it's not 3 hours per week in the classroom. It's 9 hours of work for that class per week. So how can we attack the time management problem? Well, let's devise our plan. And one of the methods that you can use for planning your semester is a method called semester blocking. The idea of semester blocking is to take a typical week schedule and budget your full credit hour load for a semester, including things like class time, office hours, time to eat, time to exercise, and most importantly, time to study, which is defined as the total weekly credit hour time you're supposed to put into your class. Take away the actual times that your class physically meets for lecture or lab. So let's try this out. Let me walk you through a semester blocking. So I've opened up Excel, and I'm going to use Excel to go and build a sort of a quick calendar, my semester at a glance, if you will. So the first thing I'm going to do is include some times along the left-hand side in half-hour intervals, starting at 5 a.m. Next, I'm going to include the days of the week across the top, and also information about my class schedule. So those include the classes, the number of credits, the days that it meets, the times that it meets, and also the room. So to start building my schedule, let me first copy down what my fall semester schedule is. I've got a calculus course, Math 123. It's a 4-credit class. Meets Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. in the room McClory 310. Similarly, I have an English class, a chemistry class, the corresponding chemistry lab, and a general education history course. Notice that this means I'm taking a grand total of 14 credits, which is right in the middle of a full-time load. Keep in mind that that means that I'm expected to be putting in 42 hours a week per week in order to pass these courses. So, how should I go around blocking out my semester? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to block out each one of these classes. So, for example, my Math 123 class meets Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 1 to 2. So, Monday at 1 o'clock, I will mark that hour and set it aside as Math 123. And then Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are similarly set aside. And then I'm going to repeat. English meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 10. Chemistry meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 2 to 3. The Chem Lab meets for a single 3-hour block on Tuesday afternoons. And the History course meets on Tuesday, Thursday mornings. So this means that we've blocked out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours per week that you will spend on class time, which means you've got 42 take away 16 hours or 26 more hours per week that you're going to have to set aside for study time, for working on these classes. Now, before we get too crazy about putting those things in, let's go and set some blocks of time aside for the other things we have to do. We're going to have to eat. So let's block out times for dinner, breakfast, and lunch. Me, I'm an early eater. It wouldn't take me very long to eat my breakfast in the morning. I see I have the noon hour free each day of the week, which is pretty unusual typically, but I'm going to use that time right there for my lunch hour, which is a nice chance to get some food, hang out with your friends. I also would like to set aside an hour each day for dinner. At the bottom of my schedule, I see that I've got the 6 o'clock time set aside each day, and so I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull aside that 6 o'clock Monday through Friday for dinner time. The next thing I'm going to do, and this is actually pretty important habit to get into, is to set aside an hour a day in your schedule for exercise. Not time just to blow off and do other things, but to actually get some physical education. A healthy body will give you a healthy mind. Me, I'm an early riser, so I would probably set aside this hour as soon as I get up each morning as my exercise block. And again, it doesn't have to be the same time each day. You could stagger it around a little bit in order to make things work. So the next thing that I'm going to put on my semester block is I want to have a set aside time, at least 1 hour every day during the week, the work week, that I will use for homework. This would be one that you don't want to have shifting around all of the time. Have at least one, preferably 2 hours that you can set aside each day that you're going to dedicate to getting things done. For example, in this current block, I noticed that I have this 8 to 9 hour free every single day. And so I'm going to set aside that 8 to 9 o'clock morning time as a study hall. That means during 8 to 9 every single day, Monday through Friday, I will spend that time doing work, catching up on homework, doing my reading, things that are needed to be done for my classes. I'm also going to do work each night. You want to get in the habit of always thinking that there's stuff that you should be doing when you come home each day. So let me look at the time right after dinner. Now, I know me, right after dinner, I'm pretty much useless. So I'm going to give myself a half-hour break here. And starting at 7:30 to 8:30, on this block of time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to set aside that for my study hall time. Again, now I'm not going to set aside Friday because it's a Friday night. What I want to do here is make sure that I set aside Sunday for it. Pretty much think 5 o'clock on Friday, the work week is over. You've got until 5 o'clock on Sunday to start thinking about your school again. So now that you've set aside 2 hours a day per week for study, that means you've now taken care of 10 of the 26 hours you need to set aside for study, which means you've got 16 free hours to stagger your way through. Now, before I get to putting in those 16 days here, let's go and set aside our weekend. So pretty much starting from 5 o'clock on Friday, the whole of Saturday, and Sunday up to about 5 o'clock, I'd like to set those times off in gray as free hours. Time for you to do other things. You need to be able to get out. And if you're budgeting your time well enough during the week, you should be able to have this kind of free time on the weekends. So that means we still have 16 more hours of time to budget for study work. And that's where you're going to have to start using your schedule to get these things done. For example, for my Calc 1 class, I have this one day that I don't have to show up for that class. That seems like that would be a perfect time to set aside as study time. And I'm not going to mark it with anything right now. This is just going to be an hour that I use for class time. Same thing here with this chemistry hour. Similarly, I might use this block of time, the 10 to 11 hour, as some study time. So that's added 5 more hours to my study time, which means I'm now down to 11 hours that I need to sort of dedicate through here. Another effective time for studying is immediately after classes. So in the event that you have an extra hour after a particular class, such as after this chemistry class, would be another good hour for study. That's added another 5 hours of study time, which means I now have to go and budget 6 more hours per week. 6 more hours per week, that's just an additional hour of maybe study time. So, for example, I could add an extra half hour to my nighttime study hall, bringing it instead of 8:30 to 9 o'clock, which adds another 2.5 hours, which means I'm now down to 3.5 hours of time I need to budget per week. If you're more of a night owl, you could certainly use times after 9 o'clock, but I would recommend never going past midnight. Never trust any homework you've done after midnight. So if you are capable of staying up a little bit later, go for it. Me, when I get around 10 o'clock, I'm worthless. So what I might do is extend this study hour and perhaps extend my morning study hall by a half hour. And so now I've got my semester blocked out. Any time that's in color is a time that I've got some kind of an obligation. Any of the times that are in white are times I haven't filled up with anything. So those are times that I can hang out with friends, that I can play Xbox, that I can go down and get myself a coffee. And that's how I'm going to budget my time. And it does give you a sense of how much time you're expected to be putting into your work, into your classes. So now that you've got your semester all blocked out, it's up to you to carry out the plan, and this is going to be, well, up to you. I can't go and take your classes for you. However, in the next few videos, we'll talk a little bit about how you can go and make the most out of those red times that were set aside for your classes, and how to effectively use those green times, the times you set up for study hall or for practicing your courses. The last part of the POYA process is don't forget to look back. You may have to modify your semester blocking chart as need be. It may turn out that you can arrange a study group who needs to meet at a slightly different hour than the ones you've set aside. Maybe you're budgeting too much time for your lunch break. Over the course of the first week or two, you should probably be able to modify it a little bit as you understand your instructor's office hours. You might also take a look at that semester block after the first exam to see how well it's been stacking up for you. In the next video, we're going to focus on those red cells. What are tips for making note-taking an active learning process?